You're listening to the best of what radio was, is going to be.
Everything you want to hear from the voice of Cerritos College, WPMD on the net, where people make a difference.
Good afternoon, Falcons. Welcome to another edition of the Falcon Spotlight. I'm your host, wpmd, and we are here at Cerritos College, WPMD radio station located at Norwalk, California. At this time, I'd like my guest to please introduce yourself.
Hi, Rob. I'm so excited to be here with you. I love community colleges. You guys are so lucky to have this facility available to do this great programming. My name is Leticia Vasquez, and I am a director at Central Basin Municipal Water District, which is one of the local water agencies.
Cool. Now, tell me, what is the Water Board?
Well, the Water Board, if I can compare it to, something that a lot of people are familiar with, is really like a city council. The difference is that all we do is focus on water. So we basically provide a supplemental or an additional supply of water to 24 cities in LA County.
24, cool. So why should people know that it's important? What does it affect?
Well, water is very, very important to us, and really to all of our communities. Water is a very, very precious natural resource. And, it's a limited resource. And because it's a limited resource, we have to make sure that we are being responsible stewards of that, very limited resource. Part of our responsibilities is to do a lot of education and help our communities understand that it is a limited resource, and also to create ways to use that very limited resource in the best possible way. After all, one of the things that we can't exist without is water. And so it's one of the very basic, elements that we need for us to really exist as a human, as humans and, animals. So it's very important to us.
Excellent. Tell me your roles, your responsibilities as the director of the Water Board.
Well, in addition to selling the 24 cities and unincorporated areas of LA County that are a part of our district, in addition to providing them with supplemental water, what we also do is we do a lot of education programs. So we have a very, very strong educational program in our schools. We teach young people how to be responsible stewards of water, how to conserve water, how to use it wisely in their homes and in their work environments. We're also responsible for setting public policy. As you may well know, earlier in the year, the governor of California declared a drought. And as a result of that, we have been working in partnership with cities to help them amend their ordinances to impose limitations on how people use water. So we are quite busy with that. And as a part of the governor's executive order, he also mandated that cities across the state conserve 25% of their water. And so we have worked with cities to help them achieve those goals. We actually have this really exciting project that the Central Basin embarked on over 10 years ago, actually 15 years ago to be precise, to build a recycled water pipeline, to basically sell recycled water to the communities that we service. For example, in the city of Montebello, if you're familiar with the Montebello golf course, it used to be irrigated with drinking water, water that we drink and we use every day. We recently did a deal with them where we're going to be delivering recycled water to that golf facility so that we're not using drinking water to irrigate that golf course. So that's just one of the examples of some of the things and projects that we are responsible for at Central Basin.
Cool. Tell me, what was life as a student like? For example, in high school, were you involved in anything? What were some of your favorite subjects?
I was involved in student government in middle school. I really, really enjoyed history. I enjoyed sports. I actually played softball and volleyball and basketball. But as far as subjects, I have to say that history was my favorite subject. I really enjoyed English. Yeah, those were my favorite subjects in high school.
Cool. Did you know right away what college you wanted to go to? What major?
Interestingly, I have to say that I was not the best student in high school, and I wasn't sure what I was going to do. And, I didn't come from a family that had gone to college. My parents both immigrated here from Mexico my mother when she was 15, my father I think in his early 20s. And, they came here to give their kids a better life. And the one thing they did always stress was education. You have to go to college. You have to go to college. I have to say that I have two older sisters, and they really paved the way, because when it came time for me to apply to college and to really make a choice about what I was going to do and where I was going to go, I didn't really have a choice. They said, you're going to go, this is where you're applying to, and my sister sat me down, and I applied, for college. I got accepted to Cal State Long Beach, and I also was accepted to Cal State Chico, and I ended up going to Cal State Long Beach because my sister was already there. She had pledged a Latina sorority that she was really involved with that helped to recruit me out of high school, so it just kind of happened.
Nice. So speaking of joining a group, what other things did you join while you were at college? Clubs, student government?
Actually, I was really involved with Delta Sigma Chi. That was probably the only organization I was really involved with. There were some, I'd attend some of HSBA, which is the Hispanic Student Business Association at Cal State Long Beach. I had friends that were a member of that organization, so we'd attend some of their events. I worked actually part-time during my time as an undergraduate student, so my involvement was a little limited, but I will say that we were really proud to help the first Latino get elected to the ASB at Cal State Long Beach. His name is Andrew Munoz. And we, through Delta Sigma Chi, we actually brought people together and said, hey, we need some representation on campus. And we got him elected to the ASB, and we had a representative there speaking to our issues. So,
nice. We'll be right back after these public service announcements.
The story of rock and roll has been a fascinating 50 years worth of genius, innovation, folly, and tragedy. Mike Stark has covered it all in his brilliant music magazine, Rock 50. You can hear the best of this outstanding series every day, 7 days a week at 6 a.m. Pacific. It's the best of rock and roll on the Best of Rock 50 with Mike Stark, mornings at 6 Pacific, only on WPMD on the net, where people make a difference.
The Cerritos Triathlon Club is having a book sale this Wednesday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. in front of the library. There is a wide variety of books at great prices. Show up, buy big, and help one of the clubs here on campus at Cerritos College.
Hundreds of thousands of veterans have taken off their uniforms and put them away, carefully packed and safely stowed. But for some veterans, the uniform isn't so easily removed. The emotions experienced while serving continue to weigh on them. Life after service is different. Many veterans find transitioning difficult, and daily life is no longer as enjoyable as it once was. Some feel overwhelmed and lost. But that uncertainty doesn't take away from their strength and courage, nor does it take away from the sense of duty veterans carry with them. The transition from service is different for everyone. If you are a veteran going through a difficult time, or know one who is, the power of one person, one connection, one act of compassion can make a difference. For free 24/7 confidential support, call the Veterans Crisis Line at 1-800-273-8255 and press 1, or visit veteranscrisisline.net.
And we are back here on the Falcon Spotlight. I'm your host, Rob JF, here at WPMD Studios, located in Norwalk, California, at Cerritos College. And I'm back here with my guests. Now, speaking of which, you were mentioning, clubs and the, what is it, sorority?
Mm-hmm.
Tell me, what is the benefit of joining these types of groups for students, rather than, students who, they just go to class and go straight home?
Well, one of the greatest benefits, I have to say, of joining those organizations is you develop a circle of friends, like-minded friends, that need the same type of support that you need to be successful, in school. One of the things that I experienced when I first walked onto my the college campus is I didn't see a lot of people like me, and I didn't feel like I belonged there. And so, oftentimes, we have to feel like we belong and be around people that are going to embrace us. And so, one of the benefits that I certainly had of being involved with the organizations, and also with the campus activities that I was involved with, was that I felt like I was around people that understood me. And I also felt like I was around people that had the same struggles that I had. For example, I think I mentioned that I worked part-time, and our parents couldn't afford to pay for our college education. So I was around friends whose parents also couldn't always financially support them, so they worked part-time. And it was like a sense of community. It created a sense of community for me that helped me through some of the most difficult times in college, because it's not easy. It's not easy being in school. It's not easy doing something that hasn't been done in your family. And so having that support group, I think, really helped on campus.
And that's the perfect transition for the next question. Books are totally expensive, and oftentimes students, have to work usually. Tell me about the jobs that you held while you were going to school.
Well, interestingly, I have to say that I had a job, like when I turned 15 and a half, I started working, okay, and I have never been unemployed. I've been employed ever since. So when I was in high school, I actually worked at the Miller's Outpost in Southgate. My very first job was at McDonald's in Lynwood, which is not there anymore, but there was one right on Carlin and Atlantic, and that was my very first job in high school. In college, I worked as a teacher's aide, for LA Unified School District. I did that my first 2 years in college. And then after that, my last 2 years in college, I actually worked at a domestic violence center, and I helped. We ran a hotline, a 24-hour hotline, and a shelter actually, which is here in this local area. It's at a confidential location. You can't really disclose where it is, but it was a 24-hour facility, so I had a chance to work on weekends and make a little money. And working at that organization was really the determining factor for me in terms of my major. Working with battered women, I realized the importance of having those kinds of organizations available to people. And so my junior year in college, when you're forced to declare a major, I looked at all my grades, and I noticed that I had gotten A's on all of my criminal justice classes. So then I thought, okay, I'm helping, women that have been victims of domestic violence, helping them file restraining orders. Let me just major in criminal justice. And so that was the work that I did while I was in college.
So when you were thinking about, picking different undergrad classes, like, did a friend tell you, hey, you should try one of the criminal justice classes, or how did you just decide to take the criminal justice class before that?
At that time, the state colleges had a program. I'm not sure if it's still around, but it was an EOP program, Equal Opportunity Program, where affirmative action required that the universities recruit a certain number of minorities. So when I participated in that program, they assigned you a counselor, and so the counselor said, okay, these are your choices, which one do you want to take? And so I took criminal justice because I was interested in the law. And I thought taking a criminal justice class would give me an opportunity to learn a little bit about the law, and it did.
Cool. And then so you have multiple degrees. Tell me, since, sometimes people have their degrees in different areas, tell me what inspired you for each one.
That's a really good question, because that's exactly what happened. Okay, I was really kind of inspired, and I was like, okay, I want to do this now. So I told you my work, in domestic violence was what inspired me to get my undergraduate degree, my Bachelor of Science in Criminal Justice. Actually, after I graduated, I made a conscious decision that I wanted to go back to the community where I was raised to work. And so I started working for a local women's based organization, feminist organization called the Young Women's Christian Association. We were based out of Southgate. And it really kind of leads to how and why I got my next degree. I was really involved through the California Coalition Against Sexual Assault in the passage of a law that we all know today. It's called Megan's Law. And for 3 years, we made a trek up to Sacramento with a coalition of women from throughout California that were there to fight for, women's rights. And we passed the law, and we passed Megan's Law. And that experience left a huge impression on me about what I wanted to do with my life. And I knew that public policy, that by being involved in public policy and understanding public policy, that I would be able to make a difference in my community and really continue to do it. So I decided to get my master's degree in public policy and administration. And that was, what led to that. Actually, after doing that, I worked in the community organization for quite some time, and then an opportunity came for me to run for city council in the city of Lynwood. And I thought, okay, this is perfect. I have experience with public policy. I was born and raised in the community. I actually graduated from Lynwood High School. I'm a Lynwood High School alumni. I benefited bountifully from, excuse me, a lot of the programs, the youth programs that the city of Lynwood offered. My mother was a Backwatch captain, and so I decided that I was going to run for office. And I ran for office. Actually, I left the nonprofit to start teaching for Lynwood Unified School District. I taught for Lynwood Unified School District for a couple of years. And then after that, I decided to run for city council. And ran for city council, got elected. I actually was the underdog. No one was expecting me to win. In Lynwood, if you kind of look at the politics, you have groups, that pretty much kind of dictate, okay, who's going to win this election. And so I was the person that wasn't supposed to win. I was told that I wasn't qualified, and so I thought, you know what, I should be on this council. I grew up in this community. I'm qualified. I'm going to do it. And I did it, and I won.
You were done with school already?
Actually, I had finished my my first master's degree. And since I had been teaching, I kind of thought, well, you need to go back to school, to get another degree, get your teaching credential, and get your master's degree in education. So I got elected. I ended up leaving education. I left teaching for Lynwood Unified School District. to go work for a member of the state legislature, Assemblyman Mervyn Dimely, who represented us in Congress probably 15 years prior. And I was up in Sacramento, and he asked me to come work for him. And because being an elected official requires a lot of your personal time, I had to be out of the classroom, and I didn't want it to affect my students. So I decided to leave teaching to go work for him. And I worked for him for about 5 years. At the end of his term, I had a couple of options, and I decided that I was going to go back to teaching. And what I did was I went back to education. I started teaching at the community college level. And I actually finished my second master's degree right after I left the legislature. And because I knew that, you know, teaching has been always a passion of mine. I strongly believe in education. And I knew that I would go back to education. And so I finished up my master's degree. I need to finish up my dissertation so that I can get my doctorate degree. I was actually called back into politics a couple of years ago, and I haven't quite finished my dissertation, but I'll have it done at some point. And that's kind of how things happened. You know, I kind of entered the workforce. Fortunately, because I had an education, I had choices. And I had a variety of choices or alternatives in terms of professions and job opportunities. And so I've been able to take advantage of that, and that has helped me determine, you know, where my next step was in terms of, you know, education. So I always tell young people, like, education, 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 it's going to change your life. You know, it just changes your life completely.
I know that in college there are sometimes some subjects though where we struggle like big time, like math. Tell me about, you know, how did you handle, you know, classes that oh, and speaking of which, you know, we mentioned your favorite subjects in high school. What did you enjoy aside from criminal justice in college? And you know, how did you deal with the tough classes? Did you struggle with math too?
I struggled. You know, I just figured it out. I ended, like, it took me a year to pass the math class that I needed to get my degree. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I get it. In fact, I had finished all of my coursework, okay? I just hadn't been able to pass that math class. I hired a tutor. Mm-hmm. I got work groups together with some of my colleagues, my classmates. We worked in groups, and I just used the resources that the university had to offer. And I just, like, you know, I buckled down. I was like, okay, you need to pass this math class, and that was what I did. It was tough. But, you know, I'll say this: if it was easy, everyone would do it. You know, going to college and pursuing a higher education, especially when you're the first in your family, you know, it's a difficult path to take. But I can't stress to you how life-changing, you know, it is in the end, and it's going to be in the end for you. So, you know, all these other things, you can always have a part-time job. You can always get involved, you know, in the community, and you can always run for office. And you can always go to college too, but it's nice to do it when you're young. You know, when you're young, I had the benefit of having a traditional college experience. I moved into campus. You know, I pledged, the sorority that I pledged, and I was really involved in campus life. And I just really had a wonderful time. I got an opportunity to travel. You know, I was in Europe. I mean, we did a lot. I did a lot as an undergrad, and just the experience opened up, the experience of being a student opened up so many other doors for me, and opened up the doors for even more experiences that have helped me develop as a young professional, that has helped me develop intellectually, spiritually, professionally, personally, and just in so many ways. Education, education, education. It will change your world. Yeah.
Yeah, math is totally...
Yeah, you'll get through it. Yeah, and there are so many resources. You know, like I was telling you, I teach in the community college system, and there are always, you know, you have these centers, these tutoring centers, and you have people there that the college, you know, pays for to tutor you to help get you through the courses. So, you know, it's time consuming. It's very time consuming, and oftentimes you have to give up a lot, you know, because you're not going to be able to hang out with your family every weekend. You're not going to be able to just do things that maybe your other siblings or family members are doing because you have to study. You know, you got to get the books.
Yeah, I know that, you know, sometimes we could deal with family members where, like, they'll be like, oh, well, that's nice that you're going to school, but aren't you getting paid to do something? And, like, they don't get it. Or even then, like, right now, if we do volunteer stuff, I think some people, they don't realize the importance that when you do things even in the community, or you're doing things outside of class here on campus that you're doing just on volunteer basis for no pay, and you have family members who, they're like, yeah, but are you getting paid? And that could sometimes be frustrating.
Absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, you know, like I was telling you, the organization I was involved with on campus, they required that we do a lot of community service. Mm-hmm. So I had to, you know, like, really hustle. I had to do my little 3 hours at work, then figure out a way for me to go do my volunteer work, and then study, and then, you know, try and hang out with my family every now and again. And so it's kind of a balancing act. You know, you have to try and balance all of the things that you're doing. And it's great because it's a great training ground for you, because when you become, you know, when you enter your profession, you know, you're going to have the same dynamic going. You're going to have your family life, you're going to have your professional life, and then you're going to have your outside activities, which may be political, or they may be community centered, or they may be, you know, service centered, you know, volunteering at the local homeless agency or what have you. But it's a great place for you to learn time management.
Speaking of time management, how did you deal with, you know, I know people can sometimes freak out during midterms and finals. What did you do?
Well, one of the things that I tried to do is I tried to keep up with my work during the semester. That way, I mean, that was one of the things I learned early on, like in college, is because I think my first semester, I would wait till the last minute for everything. And then because I had so much going on, I realized, okay, you have to take it step by step, and you have to do things so that by the end of the semester, everything is not due. You know, so just, you know, putting a calendar together, how do you do it? You put a calendar together and you stick to it. You know, you can't start writing a 15-page paper the night before it's due. I learned that the hard way. It ain't going to happen. So, you know, you do a schedule and you try to do a little bit, you know, a little bit at a time. Mm-hmm. Writing a 15-page paper is difficult. You're not going to do it in one sitting. And I didn't understand that. Yeah, and so with, you know, the experience of being a student, I learned that I needed to do that. And that was one of the strategies that I used to help get me through. Yeah. You know, I will say, though, that that the bachelor's degree, getting the BA, was probably the toughest for me, because you have to take all of these classes, right, that you really don't care about. And once I got through that hurdle, because, you know, you can't get a master's degree without getting a bachelor's, right? So once I got my BA and I started my first master's degree, it was like a stroll in the park, because it was dealing with content and information that I loved, that I was working in already. So so I have to say that the graduate programs are a little easier. I don't want to say easier, because I don't think that's the word. It's just, for for me, I had, when I made a decision to get that second master's degree, I knew that it was going to be in a discipline that I would be using professionally. So, yeah, I don't want to call it easy because it's not easy.
Yeah, I know, but
it helps when you're
at least
using
it's
it
major
professionally.
related classes. Because I know when we're doing our
Absolutely.
general ed, we're like, why do we need
Right.
this science
Why do I
class or
need
something?
science, or why do I need to take astronomy, and why do I need to take math? Yeah, I get it.
Yeah. We'll be right
It's a
back
journey.
after these public service announcements.
Hey everybody, I'm Casey Petrowski. For more years than most of us can remember,
What
the
year
amazing
are you
story
in
of the
here at the
Beatles
college?
has been unfolding in front of us.
well, like
A
sophomore,
fascinating,
I've
one-of-a-kind
been here
story
for a
that
while.
we look
Since
at bit by
originally
bit
I was
on the
sociology
Beatles show.
major.
And we
Okay.
give it to
So
you
then
8 days
I
a week here on
switched over,
WPMD.
when I
New
took a
episodes every
broadcasting
Tuesday
class.
night at 8 Pacific,
And then I was
classic
like,
episodes
I
every
love the
morning at 8
broadcasting,
Pacific.
so I've
Hear what all the mania for
taken
the
most
last
of the
50
radio
years has been
television
about.
courses.
Join us
Oh,
for the Beatles
nice.
show here
Oh, good
on
for you.
WPMD on the net, where people
I have to read this
make a
one.
difference.
As a parent, you can't help but look at your child and wonder what the future holds. You may dream about the possibility of your son or daughter becoming a professional athlete or a renowned heart surgeon. But while you are dreaming, consider this. The odds that your child will be diagnosed with autism is 1 in 68. Knowing the signs of autism and addressing it early can make a world of difference to your child and you. To learn more about the science, visit autismspeaks.org. Brought to you by the Autism Speak and the Ad Council. Public service announcement by WPMD, where people make a difference.
My favorite thing about music
Yeah, all I
is it's
need
reliable.
now
It's
is
always
the
there.
newspaper class, which I'm taking right now.
There's nothing to worry about
I
when
need
you do
to
music.
reach 21
Takes my
stories
mind
by the
off
end of the
of
18-week
all of
session
the
to
worries
get the A.
that I have in
And
life.
then
You're just having
I left
fun.
math for last, so I have like...
When I'm playing it, I'm like, wow, this is neat. I think just to like shock
five
myself.
semesters of math.
I didn't
to take.
have anywhere to belong yet.
Um,
If I played
and I
drums,
need
or,
an
if I
internship
played
at a
guitar,
TV
or
studio
this, or I
or
sang,
radio
I
station.
felt like all of a sudden I had.
Yeah, so this is the last stuff
It's
that
wonderful.
finally...
Like heart is something
I've
that
taken
gives me
all the
great
other
joy.
general
And it just
education
helps
stuff.
me cheer up other people.
Now it's just
You're
the
kind of
more time,
communing with
the
something
ones that take the
that's
more time, like the newspaper
subtle
one.
and beautiful.
You know, you need
Giving
enough
it
time
that
to like
creativity.
commit to everything.
The sound
and,
just increases around you.
go
You
to
just
certain
become
events
immersed
outside
in
of class
it
time
for
to
one way.
write the stories that you need.
When you play
And
music,
I
you're
think you have to
playing
write
life.
a certain amount in
Whatever
different
music
departments. So
means
sports,
to you,
arts,
just play.
news.
Brought to you by the NAM Foundation.
Multimedia. That's the last part. I still. Oh, we gotta go back on the air. Okay, and we're back here on Falcon Spotlight. I'm your host, Rob JF, and I'm back here with my guests. Now, what are you most proud of?
What am I most proud of? You know, that's really a simple one. My family. You know, I'm really proud of my family. Like I mentioned before, my mother came to this country when she was 15. Okay, all on her own. My grandmother sent her. She was the eldest of 7 siblings, and she came here to work as a nanny. And my father came here through the Bracero program. He was a farm worker in the Leno, and he worked in the fields before he moved to Southern California. And both my parents came here with the dream of giving their children a better life. And I get a little teary-eyed about this because they've achieved their dream. You know, they raised 6 kids, and we all went to college. And we're all productive, you know, members of the society. And I'm really proud of that.
What do you guys major in? Did any
Yeah.
major in the same field? Or?
Actually, you know, my oldest sister, she's an educator. We know what, we're all in education for the most part. My oldest sister, she majored in education, and she's an administrator for LA Unified School District. Then it's my other sister, Selena. She teaches in the community college system in Texas, and then it's myself. I'm in education as well. I teach, as I mentioned, I teach undergraduate courses, and I also teach graduate level courses in public administration. And then after that, my brother, he actually works in the private sector. He's in finance. He's in the banking business. And then after that is my other sister, and she's in education also. And she's an educator in early childhood development. And then my other brother who works for a federal program recruiting young people to participate in educational programs. So if we learned one thing from our parents, it was the importance of education, and we're all kind of doing it in our own way.
So when it comes to, after you do your master's, or before that, like for the bachelor's, did you qualify for financial aid? After the bachelor's, did you have to apply for like loans, or did they still cover the master's? Or
in California, we have a really great two-tier public education system, and I always encourage young people to use it because education, for the most part, is still affordable. So I say that to say that I didn't have to I paid for my own school, and I paid for my own school while I was at Cal State. And I worked and paid for my school. So I caution people all the time. It's very disturbing to me to see that the cost of higher education has gone through the roof, and that students today, at the end of their bachelor's degree, have incurred this outrageous amount of debt that really their jobs, once they get into their jobs, they're stuck having to make this monthly payment that doesn't quite allow them to reap the benefits of, the additional pay that they get because they have degrees. So definitely, be careful with that.
what advice would you give people that are interested in running for office?
Mm-hmm. I certainly encourage young people to get involved locally as a commissioner, as a block watch captain, volunteer on campaigns. I think that'll help lay the groundwork for you developing the understanding that you need to have to run for office. I always encourage people, and I know that we're Facebook friends, I always post leadership trainings. I think those are really important. They help. I certainly participated in a number of them before I ran for office, and as I was developing as a professional. Leadership institutes, I went through NALEO, the National Organization, Latino Elected and Appointed Officials. There was also another national leadership institute that I completed. It was called Elección Latina. Another one is the Hispanas Organized for Political Equality. It's called the Hope Leadership Institute. I went through their training program. The Young Women's Christians Association had another one that I completed. The National Organization for Women. So a lot of organizations that I was involved with that offered those leadership trainings. I went through before I ran for office, and that really helped. And I also volunteered on campaigns and did my work with a local nonprofit, and so all of that kind of came together when I decided to, seek an elected position locally. So I was able to bring all those experiences together and make it happen.
And can you tell our audience about commissions?
Commissions are basically they're like a group of citizens that are usually appointed by the city council members or the mayor, and they work on specific issues. Like, for example, in the city of Lynwood, you've had your planning commission, you've had your women's commission, and the women's commission basically was charged with the responsibility of addressing women's issues locally. The Parks and Recreation Commission, they were responsible for programs and services that the Parks and Recreation Department implemented. The planning and actually, one of my first commissions that I served on in Lynwood, it was the Public Safety Commission. And we heard citizen complaints when people were complaining about needing a stop sign or needing speed bumps in their neighborhoods. They would come to our commission and say, we have this problem. This person has been, this many people have been hit because of speeding cars. We want the commission to look at what can be done in our neighborhood. And so we would explore, what alternatives we had to address the issue. I think that was really helpful to me because I learned, one, how to use Robert's Rules of Order, which is the process that, the rules that govern how you conduct meetings. I also learned the Brown Act, which are the rules that govern how you conduct public meetings. You have to have them posted, you have to have them open. The folks in the community have to have access to them. They have to be able to have access to the meetings. They have to have a forum from which they can, give their public input. So that was really helpful to me because after I got elected, I understood what the rules of engagement were when I sat on the dais to make decisions on behalf of the citizens.
And what are the terms?
On the Lynwood City Council or on the Water Board?
Well, sure, both, and then the commissions.
Yeah. You know what the terms are basically for a commission is you're there at the will of the elected officials that appointed you. As a council member, I understand that Lynwood now has term limits. So I think you can run for 2 4-year terms. So you have term limits now. And then on the water board, you have 4 years. You can serve for 4 years, and we don't have any term limits.
Cool. What are your plans for the future?
Well, I'd say that the first thing on my agenda is still finishing up my dissertation. I need to finish up my dissertation. I've invested so much time and energy in doing that. So that's probably the primary thing that I have on my plate. And other than that, just, serving folks on the water board. It's been very interesting for me. I've learned tremendously about California's water supply. I've learned about California's infrastructure and how we get water to the communities that we serve. And it's been an opportunity for me to really bring that knowledge to the communities that I service. And that's been a lot of fun. So I just, really hope to continue doing that. So in fact, I represent the cities of Lynwood, Southgate, portions of Carson, Compton, Florence, Firestone, Walnut Park, what else? An area called Willowbrook.
Cool. And also, when you were elected into Lynwood, you made history. Tell me about that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it was really great. It was nice to serve as the city's first Latina mayor. Actually had the privilege of serving with another Latina on the city council, who's actually still there, Maria Teresa Santillan, and she's been very instrumental in a lot of projects and programs there in the city. So it was tough. It's tough as a woman to be the first. I remember going into the bathroom in our closed session at City Hall. There was a bathroom that's designated for the council members, and I remember we were the first Latinas. I remember the men would leave the toilet seat up constantly. And so I was like, okay, we have women on the council now. You got to, be respectful. Put the toilet seat down. And so that was a point of contention for a little bit. But it was great because we were able to bring a different perspective, to the city council as women. I think we certainly had an opportunity to change the direction of the city. Parks was a priority for us. It became a priority. And, there are a lot of things that are happening now that were initiated, a while back under the leadership of the women. So it was a great opportunity. It was a learning opportunity for me, and an opportunity for me to give back to the community that gave me so much, coming up there in Lynwood.
Cool. I know you were able to get a senior center?
Yes, we built the senior center. We were able to secure the funding for the Yvonne Burke Park. The other two parks, the park on State Street. So we actually built that, and also the Ramon Medina Park. Mm-hmm. So we secured funding for that. We actually led a very aggressive effort in the city to bring funding for parks and street projects during that time. So it was a lot of fun. We hired a lobbyist for the first time, and I understand that they still have a lobbyist, and that's really great, because if you're not in Sacramento knocking on doors of your state assembly members, your state senators, the people that distribute the funding, then you're not going to bring resources to your community. And I remember being heavily criticized by folks when I was a council member, because I spent a lot of time in Sacramento, spent a lot of time in Washington, D.C., but that's where the money is. And so I'm, really excited to see that we were able to bring home the money, and that it continues to come in.
Cool. So, for running for, even just for commissions, were you shy, or were you right away oh yeah, I'll totally run, or did someone have to convince you, hey, you should totally try commissions and stuff?
Actually, I was asked to serve on a public safety commission, because at the time I was working for the YWCA, and we were developing these programs to help battered women in Lynwood, Compton, Watts, and Willowbrook. And so one of the council members said, you should apply for the Public Safety Commission. That way you can bring the services that you're offering at the YWCA into, the public and to our community, so people can learn about it. And you have a lot to offer. You've been, doing a lot of work in the area. So I think you should apply. And so I applied, and that I got approved by the council, and that was how I became a commissioner. In fact, I serve on the Public Safety Commission with Councilman Sala Torre. Yeah, way back. So he and I were on the Public Safety Commission together. Mm-hmm.
Cool. And then how does it go, from there, when you wanted to run? How expensive is it to run for office? You need,
It's very expensive, and like I was telling you, really my involvement in the community. Well, first off, I was committed. I was committed to the community. When I graduated from college, I said, I want to go back to my community and I want to work. Mm-hmm. I want to invest my professional career in my community, which is hard. It's a hard decision to make, but I was committed. I knew that that's what I wanted. Because, when you have a degree, you can go anywhere and work, right? In fact, one of the reasons why we go to college is because we want to, go and have other experiences. But when I said I want to invest my time in the community, I want to work there, like I said, I started my work at the YWCA, which led to my involvement with the statewide coalition against sexual assault. And then we passed Megan's Law. Okay, so I saw a law being passed in California, and I was like, oh my God, I can do this locally. I can pass laws locally if I run for office. Okay, so then I thought, okay, well, how can I learn how to do that? So I went to the commission meetings as a part of my job. I went to the commission meetings, and when the council person asked me to apply for the commission, I thought, okay, well, go ahead and do it. You know, I think at the time they gave us a stipend of like $25 a month or something. And so all of my experiences kind of led up to me deciding to run for office. When I decided to run for office, I didn't just do it I didn't just say, okay, well, I'm going to do it tomorrow. Tomorrow's the filing deadline. I kind of was thinking, well, maybe I might do it in a couple years. And so I went through the leadership institutes. I started getting more involved locally in my community through my job and through my volunteer work. And actually, when I decided to run, when I decided to do it, I knew that I was going to need money because campaigns are not, they're not free. So I started a year before, and I brought together all of my friends, my family, my professional networks, and I said, this is what I want to do, and I need your help. And I started raising money. Like, my best friend had one of my first fundraisers. We raised like, $2,500, and then I had the Hope Leadership Institute group had another fundraiser for me. They raised another couple, $1,000 for me, and it was like throughout the course of a year, I was able to raise a little bit of money here and there, and which ended up totaling an amount that I needed, to run for office. Because I wasn't a part of the establishment, I didn't have the money that the other candidates that were the anointed candidates had. In fact, and you can look at the public records for this, during my election cycle, if you look at the campaign statements for the anointed candidates, one of them spent $78,000.
Wow.
Another one spent $103,000. And they lost. I won. I raised $30,000. My father gave me $5,000. My mom gave me another $5,000. So I was able to through my professional network, my family and friends, to raise the money that I needed to run a good, solid campaign. And so I say that to say that, money isn't everything. When people at the grassroots level support you and they know that you're there for the right reasons, they're going to elect you. And we did a lot of grassroots work, and we knocked out an incumbent, and bested, two people that spent, 2 and 3 times as much on their campaigns. So, but it was very, community oriented, and it's doable. You just have to, create the foundation to make it happen.
Well, I want to thank you for taking the time to visit WPMD Studios. We're already out of time, but this has been a really great to have, such a big guest. It's, before I used to, just interview like a student but now I've tried also to try to reach out to community leaders. So to have an elected official, it's pretty cool to have one on the show. But thank you very much. And ladies and gentlemen, remember to tune in every Monday at 11 a.m. I'm here on Falcon Spotlight. Until next week, folks.